Ladies and gentlemen, check it out. I've got 4 convertibles that compete for your hard-earned dollar. Right here, the 2017 Fiat 124 Spider. And next to me is the Mazda Miata. Now, if they look similar, it's because they're built on the same assembly plant in Hiroshima, Japan. Here we have the Mini Cooper convertible. Unlike those 2 cars, this has 4 seats. And of course here, well, we have the Volkswagen Beetle Convertible. And they're all kind of lifestyle cars, they're all fun cars. The question is, which one is the best to drive? And that question will be answered coming up right now on the Fast Lane Car. $27,530 for this denim edition. It also gets 25 in the city and 34 on the highway with a 28 mpg combined. Under the hood of this Volkswagen is a 1.8 liter turbo that puts out 170 horsepower and 184 pound-foot of torque. It is mated to a 6-speed dual clutch automatic, and unlike the Mazda or the Fiat, it powers the front wheels. So let's take it for a ride. Let's see how it compares. Oh yeah, this is the denim version. Very American. Now there are some basic rules you guys have to be familiar with. I'm here with about 40 other journalists, so I don't have a lot of time to spend in this car because everybody wants to drive it. So I kind of came here before everybody else got here so I can get some time behind the wheel. So these are very impromptu driving impressions, but like I said, I did go to the launch of this vehicle, so I'm pretty familiar with it. Let's do this. Let's have a little race, see which top goes up faster or down. Is it the Volkswagen or the Mini? You guys time this. Here we go. Maybe I'll speed up the video to make this a little bit more interesting. Oh, can't do that, then you couldn't time it. I'm just kidding. And we're done. How long was that? Remember that time, because when I get in the Mini, I'm going to do the same thing, and you can let me know which one of the 2 vehicles is faster in the comments below. And let's try top down, because that's really how people use this, right? I know one thing, the Fiat and the Mazda are going to be a lot faster. There we have it. These convertibles kind of fall in a spectrum. Think about it this way. On the left, you have lifestyle cars that are basically cars that you want to take on a beautiful weekend day on your favorite road to your favorite lunch spot to really enjoy a nice day of fun in the sun. And then of course there are cars that have much more sportier ambitions, which is cars that not only can you bring the top down, not only can you go to your favorite lunch spot, but you can go and take the canyon route, which is the twisty one with all the fun turns. And of course this Volkswagen falls much more on the leisure side of that scale. Not that it's not competent, not that it's not fun in the turns, it's just designed more to be an open air convertible than a canyon carver. Plus, of course, it's front wheel drive, it has back seats for friends in, I would say, an emergency. I'm going to give it a little bit of the beans here, a little bit of torque steer, not much. And it's perky. This dual clutch automatic transmission is about as good as it gets. Really, you'd be hard pressed to find a transmission that shifts as quickly, shifts as confidently, and is so well matched with the output of this 1.8 liter turbo. So from a dynamic standpoint of view, you may not have a car that is great at carving canyons, even though it's got the same bones as the Golf and the GTI, but you do have a car that has a gusty, perky, very perky engine matched to, I think, what is right now the best dual clutch transmission in the class. Let's have a little top-up race before I take this Mini Cooper for a ride. Let's see which one is faster to raise the top. I'm just gonna let you guys time it. Here we go. and you can compare it to the Volkswagen. Of course, this has that dual sliding sunroof, which is pretty cool. There you go. How long was that? I don't know, but you knew. And what I mean by that dual sliding sunroof is if you go this way, check it out, you can open it up so you get this nice sunroof, and then if you click it again, the whole top comes down. That is a very thoughtful feature, but it is a feature that in the Mini Cooper convertible that we own has actually broken, so keep that in mind. And this Mini cost a grand total of $28,990. There you have it right there. And it's not the Cooper S, but it is the Cooper. Gets 27 in the city, 37 on the highway, and 31 mpg combined, which is in the realm of all these cars. Now, luckily, I've just spent a week behind the wheel of the Cooper S version of this, so I'm once again very familiar with this car, so I feel like I'm confident to tell you about as much as I can about it. So here we have a 1.5 liter BMW twin power turbo. Twin power turbo just means a twin scroll turbo that puts out 134 horsepower and 162 pound-foot of torque. It is of course paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission, and yes indeed, it powers, you know this, the front wheels. Ironically, if you were to ask me which of the two cars that I've just driven, the Volkswagen or this Mini, feels more German, I would say this, because of course BMW owns Mini, and over the generations this car has become very German. And what I mean by that is there's kind of a sense of aesthetics, a sense of function over form that the Mini is adopting. It's gotten bigger, it's gotten more user-friendly, it's gotten less quirky. There's of course a meter here that tells you how long the top has been down. These are all very quirky things, but in general, the way that the people use this car, for instance, moving the window controls from toggle switches over here to on the door sill, that's very practical, that's very German. So this car feels more German than the Volkswagen in a lot of ways. All right, well, let's make a turn and give it the beans. A little bit of torque steer, not as fast as a Volkswagen by my seat of the pants calculation. It just doesn't have that much oomph that the Volkswagen has. There's just something about that 1.8 liter Volkswagen turbo that is magical. They've developed it over a long period of time and they've just really perfected it. From a usability standpoint, this car is a little bit smaller, it's a little bit more driver centric, it feels like it's a little bit more performance oriented. The suspension is a little bit more sorted, it's not quite as loosey-goosey, and it's not quite as floaty. The engine is good. I mean, it's powerful, it's perky, it's peppy, but like I said, I just got out of the Cooper S version of this, which is substantially more fun to drive. All right, let's compare the convertible speed on this one compared to the other two, and I'm betting this is going to be the fastest, because check this out. All you need really is one hand, done. Now, how fast and easy is that? I gotta tell you, this has got to be one of the best engineered and smartest convertibles on the market. And best of all, if your battery dies or your electrical motors fail, you don't have to worry about it, because it'll always come up or down manually. What makes this engine unlike the others? In other words, what's different about this 2-liter? And you know the answer. It's normally aspirated. The others are turbocharged. In fact, it puts out 155 horsepower and 148 pound-foot of torque. It's mated, in this case, to a 6-speed manual transmission, and it powers the rear wheels. Now, you may be wondering, why am I not driving the automatic version of this? And that's because this is the car that Fiat was kind enough to provide, so this is the car that I'm testing. When we get it back in Colorado, we'll do a more straight-up, head-to-head sort of matchup. But let's take it for a ride and see how it compares to the others. This one is 28,600, 27 mpg in the city, 34 on the highway, 30 combined. Here are all the important numbers. So let's take it on the road and give it the beans and see how it compares to the other two cars. All right, here we go. Burnout. I love rear wheel drive. Oh, from the seat of the pants, this feels by far the fastest, the most chuckable, the most immediate, the most engaging. I'm not saying the other two cars aren't that way. I'm just saying that this car is a much smaller, tidier package. Obviously, it's got two seats. Now, for a guy like me who's 6'2", there is a downside, and that is I just don't feel like I fit in this car. Look at that. My forehead is, what is that, 6 inches away from the visor? It's just too tight. It feels like a suit that I know I look good in, but honestly, I'm kind of anxious to get out of because I just feel very claustrophobic. Now, that's, of course, a personal thing. This 6-speed manual transmission is a delight to roll yourself. It just really likes to be used. Now, here's something interesting. This car is in fact 5 inches shorter and 100 pounds lighter than the Fiat 124, even though they are both built on the same assembly line in Hiroshima, Japan. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is that? And the answer is very simple. This gearbox is a new generation of 6-speed manual. The Fiat 124 has the previous generation Miata or MX-5 gearbox in it, so this one is actually 20 pounds lighter. Also, the 124's engine, the turbo 1.4, is about 80 pounds heavier than this normally aspirated 2-liter. So you're looking at a car that weighs 100 pounds less than its sibling, built on the very same assembly plant in Japan. Now, you know, it's a confusing world, right? We've got a car that was inspired by a British convertible, built and engineered by the Japanese, and now made into an Italian convertible in the form of the 124. So if you like pigeonholing your cars by where they're made, this can be very confusing very quickly, because is this a purely Japanese rendition of a British coupe? Or is the 124 an Italian-flavored, Japanese-engineered version of a British coupe? Yeah, it's confusing. But it's all good. You know, sometimes when you make a really great chili and you use a lot of ingredients, you end up with a lot of flavor. And my God, does this car have a lot of flavor. Under the hood of this Fiat is a 1.4-liter turbo that puts out 160 horsepower and 180 pound-foot of torque. It is mated, in this case, to a 6-speed automatic transmission, and it powers the rear wheels. It's very different in the way that it puts out power compared to the Miata. So let's just find out how different that is. Now, from behind the steering wheel, this Fiat 124 is identical to the Mazda Miata. These air vents are the same, these rotary controls are the same, the navigation is identical. In fact, this car doesn't have navigation, but this whole IP is just the same. So from the outside, obviously it's a Fiat. From the inside, it's a Miata. So maybe the fact that the journalists have taken to calling it the Fiata is, in this case, true. Let's look at the numbers here. Now, this one costs $27,555. It's the Classica, which means it's the entry-level Fiat 124. It started about $25, so there must be something that's been added onto this one. It's black, and of course, it has a 6-speed manual transmission. Now, there are several important differences. First and foremost is the engine, 1.4-liter turbo. Secondly, this car is 5 inches longer. And thirdly, these seats are specific to the 124. And to me, in my big American butt, they feel a lot smaller and a lot tighter. So a car that's already tight has gotten that much tighter. These are, European seats. But look, the driving position is the same. The basic ergonomics are the same, and the suspension tuning is different. So this is supposed to have more of a Fiat ride, and let's figure out what that means when I take it on this short little loop. But first, before we figure out how the ride is different, let's figure out how the engine is different, because obviously that is the biggest difference. We're back into a turbo, this time a 1.4 liter, the same one that's in the Abarth 500. And this is the first time it's ever been used in a rear-wheel drive car. So there you have it. I'm just dying to see what this engine's like, and here I am at a red light with no way to find out. Is it faster? Is it rev happy? Is it perkier? Does it have turbo lag? Oh, thank God. Here we go. Finally. It's different. The torque comes in much lower than in the MX-5, and it doesn't spool up quite as high. So you've got more torque earlier, but you don't have quite that free revving sense. Not much turbo lag. Transmission, even though it's the older generation, feels well paired to this car, and that's what Fiat will tell you. They'll tell you to use this transmission because it pairs better to the 1.4 liter turbo. Whether that's corporate speak or not, it's hard to say. So yeah, the cars do feel different. This one feels more of a, it feels and it drives bigger. What I mean by that is the MX-5 Miata is very tossable, it's very light, there's a sense of airiness about it, and even though this is identically the same chassis, it feels a little bit heavier, it feels a little bit more serious, it feels more of a cruiser than it does a canyon carver. They both feel remarkably tight, the turning radius is wonderful, right there, turbo lag, and then the power comes on, and then it kind of dies. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy between the two cars. From a suspension point of view, this one feels a little bit better dampened. That one feels a little bit more on its tippy toes. This one feels a little bit more like it's controlling what the wheels are doing. They both feel really well screwed together, so in some ways you're getting the best of both worlds here, because you're getting kind of Italian design and that Italian pizzazz, but you're getting Japanese build quality, and that's a very good thing. Which one would I buy? Oh, that is a tough question. I suppose if I wanted an Italian take on a British sports car, I'd go with the Fiat, and if I wanted a Japanese take on it, I'd go with the MX-5. They're both very different, but there's one factor that would make me buy this over the Mazda, and that is that I live at a mile above sea level, and the turbocharged engine is always going to be a better choice at a mile above sea level because it compensates for some of that loss of air pressure. So yeah, I'd get this one. But if I lived at sea level, I think I'd use other metrics. For instance, you know, which one has a better dealer network? Which one kind of speaks to me in terms of my want and need for a sports car? And that really is very personal to you. I mean, if you love Italian cars, then I'd go for the Fiat 124, and if you're a Mazda Miata MX-5 fanboy, then definitely go for the Mazda. All right, so here's my takeaway. If you love pasta, go for the Fiat. If you love sushi, go for the Mazda. Volkswagen, that is ultimately more of a cruiser than a canyon carver, so if you like spending an afternoon in the sun with your buddies, go for that one. And of course the Mini is the most luxurious of the bunch. It's the one that feels the most expensive, and if you want something that's British and German at the same time but very quirky, go for the Mini. As always, this is Roman reporting for the Fast Lane Car. Check out tflcar.com for more news, views, and of course real world reviews. See you next time. Ciao. Ever since I was invited to test drive this 2017 Acura Nsx, I have been on pins and needles because, full disclosure, I used to own an Nsx, the first generation, and the word on the street is mixed. The initial reviews came in as a car that needs a little bit more refinement. The later reviews came in as a car that is a wonderful GT car, a Grand Tourer. And of course, race car drivers say that it has too much understeer. So which one of these three is true? Well, there's only one way to find out. We're going to take it on the track, we're going to take it on the road, and we're going to get behind the wheel of first generation for this complete and, I hope, fun, fast lane car first drive review. And that is coming up right now.